Hi there, everybody. This is Professor Nelson again, coming to you from Latin Central and beautiful downtown Tacoma. And today we're going to be talking about the perfect active system, which comprises the tenses perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect, all of which indicate action that has been completed, either in the present, the future, or in the past. I'm going to get myself off the screen here for a moment because there's lots of information on the slides and I don't want to cover any of it up. So let's get started on that. There we go. Well, we've already encountered the present system of verbs, and the present system comprised the tenses present, future, and imperfect. All three of these tenses were built off the present stem, and all of them had to do with action that was ongoing or incomplete. The perfect system is exactly the opposite in that it represents action that's completed. Perfect means completed in Latin, and the three tenses that make up this system are perfect, future perfect, and pluperfect. These six tenses are all of the tenses in Latin, and so now you will have had all of the tenses in the active voice for Latin verbs. Notice here that in the perfect system, all of these in English translations include tenses of the verb have. So I will have seen in the future, I have seen in the perfect, and in pluperfect, I had seen, which completes action sometime in the remote past. In Latin, these tenses present and also perfect for these two systems also include, their uses also include what we call as a simple present or a simple past, in that the present tense can just mean I see, and the perfect tense can also mean I saw, not necessarily I have seen. The perfect is formed off the perfect stem, and the perfect stem is found in the third principal part of the verbs you've been learning in the vocabulary. Regularly, like for regular verbs like laudo, laudare, laudavi, laudatum, we wouldn't necessarily need to have the perfect be the third principal part because you can anticipate what it's going to be. But just like in English, not very many verbs in Latin are actually regular. There's no way, for example, to get from do to dedi, or sto to steady, or ago to eggy, or for God's sake, pharaoh to tuli, without just learning it. That's why you have to memorize the four principal parts, because there's no way to anticipate it. People who are learning English run into the same kind of problem when learning verbs. There's no way to get from run to ran or from go to went without just learning it, which is why these pasts are part of the principal parts in English. So the third principal part is the perfect active. Dedi would mean I gave, steti I stood, eggy I did, tuli I brought. And the rest of the tenses are made off of the stem, which is taking off the I of each of these. So ded, stet, egg, and tul would be the perfect stems onto which the endings are appended. The endings themselves are not difficult to learn. The only thing that's different is the perfect endings in and of themselves. These are endings that are different than what you've already seen, and so you have to pay special attention to them and in committing them to memory. They are isti, eat, imos, istis, and erunt. So, dedi, dedisti, dedit, dedimus, dedistis, dederunt, or laudavi, laudavisti, laudavit, laudavimus, laudavistis, laudaverunt. In the future perfect and the pluperfect, the perfect stem adds a either future or an imperfect of sum. And so you remember back when we learned sum and possum, I encouraged you to learn the future and the imperfect of sum cold because it would occur in later formations of verbs, and this is one of those cases. So in order to make the future perfect, you would have the perfect stem, like laudau, and you would add the future of sum. So laudavero, laudaveris, laudaverit, imus eritis, and then erint, which is slightly different than the verb sum, because if you look back, you'll see that the future of sum is erunt. However, that's here, so erint is the future. In the pluperfect, it's the perfect stem plus eram, eras, erat, eramus, eratus, erant. Pretty simple, really, once you know the parts and are thus able to put them together and form the corresponding tense. In English, we don't tend to use the future perfect nearly as much because it's kind of cumbersome, but Latin uses it a lot. For example, in English, a woman may say, well, by July I will have given birth, putting a short end point on the end of giving birth. In Latin, instead of saying things like, when I go to Rome, I will see the Vatican, since you have to arrive in Rome before you will see the Vatican, in Latin you will say, when I will have arrived in Rome, I will then see the Vatican. So Latin likes to keep its time signatures clear between the various tenses more than English does. And so you'll see the future perfect used more than you probably will read it in English. The same may be true as the pluperfect. The pluperfect allows a speaker to talk about action that's been completed in the remote past before another action begins. For example, I could say something like, well, I went to the store and I saw Bob. But in Latin, you have to have gotten to the store before you saw Bob there. So you have to say, when I had gone to the store, I saw Bob. Anyway, these tenses occur with more frequency than they will in English, and so it's worth your while in learning them. Fortunately, though, as you can see from here, learning them, three tenses, really entails learning one set of endings and just remembering to put another set of endings you've already learned on the stem that you already know. So it's not as bad as it might seem. Lastly, I want to say something about infinitives. There are three tenses of infinitives in Latin: present, perfect, and future. Present tenses use the present stem, of course, and we know the present active infinitive. That's the second principal part. So laudo, laudare, moneo, monere, and so forth. The perfect active infinitive adds the ending isse or ise to the perfect stem. So laudau ise means to have praised. Manuise means to have warned. Dicise, to have said. Capise, to have taken. All of these then include the verb have in their translation to indicate that the action has been completed. All right, that's the new information. That's the overview for this particular chapter. Make sure that you learn those paradigms and that you take note of when these tenses occur so that you can translate them accurately in the homework coming up. That, of course, is going to be on the quizzes and on the test, as well as in some of the reading. So it's well worth your time to spend some time making sure you learn this. If you have any questions, of course, post those to the forum. And I'll be happy to answer them, or if you see something you can answer on there, go ahead and take a crack at it. I'll take a look at your homework, of course, and we'll get back and forth on that. And I look forward to seeing what you guys have to translate coming up. We've got a couple of good mythological topics to translate in your translations, and look forward to reading those from you. And then we're on to the last leg. So things are rolling along quite quickly here. Anyway, good work to you, and I'll see you on the next chapter.